Hi, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you guys are enjoying the conference. I'm so grateful to be here and to give you guys this talk and to share some insight and some wisdom from my background. To quickly give you guys a little bit of my background, I'm currently the UX lead at 12 Traits. If you haven't heard of us, we utilize psychologically based AI to help video game companies better understand their players in real time so that they can tailor their marketing and game design efforts to better meet those needs. So really what led me here was working within the casual mobile games industries and working at companies such as GSN Games and Big Fish Games. And then prior to that, I had a technical background in computer science with a focus in computer game design from UC Santa Cruz. So simply put, my entire career has been to help game teams build better and more engaging experiences by considering the needs of their players throughout their entire design and development process. So that brings me to what I'm really excited to share with you guys today. How can you guys create more engaging experiences by utilizing UX methods throughout your entire design process? So what I've really seen within the health industry and indie games as well is, to put it bluntly, there's a little bit of a graveyard of a lot of these smaller games. And oftentimes it's because there's not necessarily all the resources or the know-how to incorporate research early on and testing practices to make sure that players are involved through that design process. And to take a game, for example, like Endeavor, where it's FDA approved to help with ADHD, at the end of the day, would a kid rather play Endeavor or Fortnite? So you can kind of take a guess on that one. So what I hope by the end of this talk is that you will have some take-home tools that you can use from traditional user experience design process to help you increase the engagement of these incredible health games that you guys are creating. And to illustrate this, I'll be utilizing a example from Big Fish Games that was a very simple change that resulted in a 26% improvement in engagement on a 10-year-old game title just after a few weeks of implementation. So let's go ahead and begin. So some of you might be familiar with this game. It's been around for a while. It's called Fairway Solitaire. And it's a pretty simple game where you're jumping in, you're playing solitaire levels. And as you can see from the top screenshot, it shows very simple and clear progression. So you only have 6 levels that you can engage with at a time, and then you switch through these pages. So there's minimal overload when users are trying to decide on what course to experience or what to play. There's star progression, which you can see the stars there. There's milestones, so you have to collect a certain number of stars to accomplish those milestones. And there's very difficulty. So because this is Fairway Solitaire, it's based off of the rules of golf. So you have 3-hole courses, 9-hole courses, and then sometimes 18-hole courses. And through those, you can very quickly, as a player, get to see how difficult is this level going to be. In addition to that, there's daily challenges. But I think what was really special about this game, and it was such a privilege to work on, is this beautiful natural environment that you see in the screenshot down below, and that's the actual gameplay. So it's really focused on the cards and clearing the cards as you do within Solitaire, and showing these progression meters in the top right and left, within these golf clubs down on the bottom right corner, which are the power-ups that you can use to progress further within Solitaire. So what's that business problem? What's the issue that I was brought in on this team for? So the business approached game designers and UX designers at that time to bring up this problem of engaging end of content players. So it's a 10-year-old title. They have over 300 levels that a lot of these players have already completed, and they're coming back day to day to just engage with daily challenge courses, which makes sense. They're end of content. They want to have more levels. They want more things to do. So we were asked as a design team to come up with a quick solution to keep them engaged. So how did we tackle this problem? And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. It is the design thinking process. So IDEO coined this process, the design thinking process, way back when, and it's been proven over the years to tackle complex problems intended to solve a real human need. So this visualization of the process is pulled from Nielsen Norman Group, which is a fantastic resource if you guys haven't already checked it out. And you can go into Design Thinking 101 to really dig into each of these stages in a little bit more detail. But I wanted to highlight this for you guys of an overview of what are each of those steps. And I'll be walking through each of these steps for this project or for this problem that we're encountering. So to go through the first phase, we have the understand phase, which is really understanding what the problem is. So that's empathizing with the business, defining what the problem is. It's really getting to know everything that's going on. And then the explore phase is taking that definition of what that problem is and really exploring multiple different hypotheses and ideas for how to solve that actual problem. And then the materialize phase, as it's pretty clear here, of testing and implementing, that's typically where you're A/B testing, you're getting it live, and you're getting more user feedback to make some of those changes. So we'll first jump into this understand phase. So what we really want to do in this phase is empathize with all of the stakeholders that are involved. So what that means is empathizing not only with the business and the players, but it's also empathizing with the other individuals on your team too. So what are their limitations? What are your capabilities as a creator to design or create some of these experiences? And then after that, how do you define that problem? So jumping into that business need. So we originally had that objective of engaging end of content players. But after interviewing the rest of the team, we realized that we have limited engineering support. So, it's a pretty old game. So we were kind of in this maintenance mode. So we weren't investing a lot of time and engineering efforts into the game at that point in time. And we only had one game designer. So if we wanted to come up with multiple levels, for example, just keep creating content at the end of the experience, that's not something that's going to be sustainable, especially when we only have one designer on the team. So now let's take a look at our player and really dig into who our player is. So the best thing about especially a lot of these old games is that there's just tons and tons of player behavior. So just looking at what is the quickest thing that you can access to learn more about your player. So looking at the player behavior, we saw that they're engaging most in daily challenge courses. So again, there's these courses that are coming up every day. They're a very loyal and positive fan base, and they communicate a desire for more things to do. So they're very actively engaged in social media. And I think some of them are even got tattoos of our brand, and they were, advertising that too. They were a very, very engaged and loyal fan base. So at this point in time, let's come up with some ideas, right? Like we've engaged, like we've empathized with the business, we've empathized with our players, and it sounds like they want more challenges, right? So I don't know, what would that be? Like if we look at other things that were popular within the market at that point in time, there were kind of social features. There were these club elements that you could incorporate because, social features, that's something that's scalable, where you have a social community that's always engaging and you don't have to have a designer constantly creating content, but that's a pretty heavy engineering lift. So maybe that's a point in time that we can talk with the business and say, can we get some more engineering support? So I want to stop right there. This is a really, really common process for a lot of game teams. So they're just looking at what is the market doing? What is the business need? What is some of that player behavior and that player feedback that they're seeing? But the big question that I saw here was, why are people engaging in daily courses? We're making this assumption that it's something that is new courses that's coming up, but do they like more challenge? Like what are they looking for? So we wanted to take a little bit deeper of a dive into actually empathizing and fully empathizing with our players. So with player behavior, we get to see what people are doing and maybe saying a little bit on social media, but we really don't dig into what they think and what they feel. And that's where user interviews, qualitative surveys, and contextual inquiry can help out a lot. There's countless other research tools. We were fortunate at Big Fish to have an actual lab that we could use. But this is something that you can do even if you're a team of one. Just go out and interview your users, interview your target audience, and just ask them what a day in their life is like. And you'll get so much more wisdom just from an hour conversation with one of your target users than you would by just looking at behavior, but just looking at market data. So we took some time to go through this and really invested a lot of resources in this. Fortunately, we had that there. But again, as mentioned, this is something that you can do by yourself on your own as well. And what did we come up with? So after talking with a bunch of end of content players, we identified that there was really one type of group. There was one group or one persona of these types of players. So I'm going to quickly read the quote, and we ended up naming her Martha because that was something that was resonant with what we found. And the tranquil environments in Fairway allow me to relax and unwind while feeling like I'm making progress to earn a challenging achievement. And so who is she? So she strives a little bit more for achievement. She's seeking additional challenge. She's motivated by feeling productive. And her biggest pain point in the game is she's uncertain about achievement paths. So this is very different from just, adding more challenge courses or adding more additional features, which is oftentimes the case of solving a lot of these problems. We're now seeing that achievements is really something that she wants, and she wants more challenge within the experience. So what we ended up doing after we learned this is to go back and reevaluate the game. And by looking at the game, we were trying to see what are the areas that are maybe the lowest lift and the easiest opportunity for improvement to satisfy her needs, just because we know that we have these minimal resources. So this is what we call the pre-course screen. This is the screen that comes up after you click on one of those tiles that I first showed at the top, where you're clicking into one of these fairway experiences right before you play solitaire. So it shows you the goals and the progress. You have your star progression. It gives you some copy there about what is this goal, and it gives you a clear call to action for continuing forward. And then in the middle, you have your power-ups. But after interviewing the team and looking at some of the old design documentation, there were countless other achievements that could be earned through every single course. So this was a huge missed opportunity and also a pretty low lift. So this satisfies pretty much all of the needs that we ended up identifying at the beginning. So I would say at this point in time, we're now done with this first understand phase. We've empathized with Martha, we've talked with the business, we've talked with our internal stakeholders. We've defined this problem of we want to increase engagement of the Marthas of this world and increase challenge and achievement. And we're now at the fun stage, right? Where you start to get to ideate, you start to come up with different solutions. So this is a great opportunity to bring in different minds. So not just designers, but bring in someone from marketing, bring in a friend or a colleague and kind of explain the problem to them and get their thoughts on that too. Especially if you are the main designer on that, this is a great opportunity to get new innovative ideas. And then we move into the prototype phase. So after you've ideated this is where you're whiteboarding, you're playing with sticky notes. There's a lot of tools out there that you can look into for this ideation process. After you've decided on maybe like the 3 to 5 best hypotheses that solve that initial defined problem, that's when you prototype this out. And prototyping doesn't necessarily mean that you have to code that. You can put that into wireframes or something similar to Balsamic, for example, where it's pretty easy to use and you can just draw it out. Or wireframes using something like Figma or Sketch or UXPin. All of these tools are great opportunities to get something into a digital form so that you can actually test that again. And that's what we ended up doing. So we decided that we wanted to redesign that pre-course screen and focus on that as our main solution area. And we came up with countless different hypotheses and we ran them through what we call impression testing or first impression testing in a very reasonable tool. I want to say it's free or it's cheap, or it's free or very cheap to just start using, especially for a small team. And what it allows you to do is come up with different wireframe hypotheses and present those in front of your target audience with a series of questions and tasks to do. So what that helps you understand is, in this case for Martha, we would ask her something along the lines of, where would you go to see the achievements or the abilities for what else you can do as challenges within each of these courses, and see how long it took her to find that and how successful she was for each of the hypotheses. And the one that performed the best and the fastest is usually the one that we would either merge hypotheses together and come up with, a couple, maybe 3 more to test to validate, or we would have a very clear winner that we could move forward with. So in this case, we had a couple that we ended up merging together, and this is what we resulted with. Again, this is still part of the prototype phase. We worked from those wireframes and worked with the artists on the team to come up with a clickable prototype. I think we ended up using Envision app for this, and basically just had the screen come up. And as you can see here, we have this drawer that's on the side that shows all of the achievements that are available within each of those courses. And something else that we had to keep in mind here is that we're not just designing for end of content. We're also designing for new players, right? We wouldn't want to have this very complex screen for a new player that's coming in. So having this drawer satisfies the needs of both those expert players as well as those beginner players. So we ended up testing this and launching this afterwards. So we now got through Yeah, we got through that explore phase and we're now at this materialize phase where we can test it and implement it. So testing, this is where you actually get it live and you actually get it programmed and you start testing it with either different hypotheses that you already had in our case, or if it's a new idea, that's where you're launching to different countries to see if this is something that someone was actually interested in, or if it's a new concept, you can also launch that through something like Playtest Cloud or usertesting.com just to start testing if some of those solutions could be a possibility. So after testing this, this is when we ended up seeing that 26% engagement. Again, look at this change. It's not really a huge change, but it's satisfying the big need of this audience that we identified through that empathizing phase. If we didn't have that phase, we could have had new features. We could have been investing in a full social club feature. That's not really what Martha wanted. Martha nowhere said that she wanted social. She wanted something that's tranquil. She wanted to have more achievements, more challenges. And all of that was already actually, fortunately, within the game. So we could have a really quick and easy opportunity to satisfy those needs very quickly and easily. So if there's only one thing that you take away from this talk, it is really to involve your players as much as possible. And what's amazing is that there's already a ton of tools out there that you can look up for involving your players during the ideation through the testing and implementation phase. And where it's a little bit more challenging is on that empathize phase, because I do know that that requires additional resources. And if you're not comfortable with interviewing or pulling out the relevant insights from interviewing, it does get challenging. And that is why we ended up coming up with 12 traits, because we are automating that entire process for coming up with those personas and really digging into who your player is, why that matters, so that you can expedite this whole phase. But yeah, if nothing else, talk with your users, get to know your users. And that's all that I have for you guys today. I know it's a lot to incorporate into one talk. But yeah, if you have any questions, I will be in the Spark Q&A room after this, and there'll be a link in the chat. Otherwise, feel free to email me at devin@12traits.com. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the conference.